One of the blessings of the podcast is definitely being able to connect with real world experts. But to take it a step further, these experts are constantly offering themselves as a resource. And it is up to you, it is up to your brand, it is up to your organization to take advantage of it. John was no different as he joined us really here to help you grow, to really help your business make more money. With more money comes happy shareholders, comes more hiring, and even growth within your business. Whereas most of John's family and those surrounding him were mechanics physically, he realized that he was a mechanic when it came to the numbers. He realized that he could take a business, he could take it apart operationally and put things back together and really help it grow and scale to where they need to be. Oftentimes, small business owners may not have the access to finance experts, to the right personnel to really help us get to where we're going. Well, John's here to help you because he's done it time and time again. So, without further ado, enjoy episode 204. Check the numbers. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Down to Business podcast here with Tamar Turner. And I always tell y'all how happy I am to be on the podcast and how excited I am to talk to any guest, any entrepreneur, business owner, anything like that. But I would say John here is probably just as excited as I am. And he has kind of a double entendre with not even entendre really, but a double purpose of being on the podcast today. While he is obviously in the number, a part of the podcast as an interviewee, somebody who will have his own official episode, he's actually going to be a resource to a lot of people listening. He can answer probably a lot of questions, which we have a lot of questions for him today, but he can also probably help you along some path of your journey, whether it be nothing more than education, being a resource, maybe plugging you in somewhere where you may need it. So if you're not listening, I definitely encourage you to listen to this episode, to all the episodes, but John particularly, he's kind of serving both purposes here. So before we break down everything that he's doing, how he's here to help, what he's doing, what he's done, John, how you doing today? How's everything on your end?
I'm doing great, Tamar. Thank you for asking. It's great to be here.
So glad to have you, and so glad for your eager and willingness to not only just be here, but also share with my audience and be of help to them too. So as we were saying, we're going to have my audience tap, and I know we're going to have some people from your side just the same. Now, I also know that we're going to have people who come along the way who are probably discovering both of us for the first time in some capacity. And that's arguably my favorite type of person. So to bring everybody up to speed, though, to put everybody on one playing field, to make sure that we all understand what's going on as we dive into this, can you just do two things for me? One, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then two, just tell us what brings you on the Down to Business podcast today.
My background as a CFO, operational CFO, really building companies. I spent 17 years in the tire industry, making the largest independent tire retailer in North America, and then came through several other industries, but always helping companies grow, at least double their size, many more than that. The tire company that I spent 17 years at, started as a small regional Florida company, and left as this huge $2.8 billion company. So it's kind of an interesting ride, and it gave me a flavor for what I like, which is business growth, business success, kind of achieving the vision of whatever business mission you have through finance. So that's my professional background, and now for the last 4 years or so, I've been doing that for small business. Had a little bit of a light bulb moment and realized that small business makes kind of silly decisions because they don't have that finance ability or the access to kind of experienced finance personnel. So really made it my vision to create my company to give that service to small business. So you mentioned kind of being of service and finding ways to educate people. It's literally what I do almost full time now, is just tell people about finance, what we do, how we can help their business make more money and be more successful.
Well, I think too, once you start getting into that money conversation with a lot of businesses and small business owners, you probably pique their interest a lot. And I could understand what you say too about why you wanted to kind of make that transition and move in that realm, just because I get it. Even as a small business owner myself, I probably have made decisions that may not have been the best for the business. But sometimes that you make those decisions blindly. Sometimes you make them inadvertently. Sometimes you make them not really realizing the information and the resources that were out there. Because I'll be the first to tell you that it wasn't really until I LLC the business earlier this year that I really realized everything that went into this. I was even speaking on my previous episode about how I didn't necessarily adopt the title as a business owner and as an entrepreneur when I first started. I really just thought, I'm a podcaster. I just like talking to people. I just like doing all of this. While I realized I was a brand, while I realized down the business was its own entity, I didn't necessarily think of it as like your business owner or your entrepreneur or somebody in the tech space or healthcare or real estate or anything like that. I just thought we were kind of just in media, and I was just kind of having some fun with things. But once I really took the business approach to things, once I really started to kind of settle in and do my research and ask those questions and hop on different calls, I was just like mind blown by everything that's out there, that the resources that were at my disposal, and they're free. One of my favorite F words next to food, free. So it was just like, now that I'm getting that, now that I'm hearing that, it's just like, wow, now the wheels are really turning. Now I can even be of a resource to others just the same. So with you now, was there, I know you said you kind of started with the tire company, and then that's when you kind of realized that was your, that was that light bulb moment making you now switch to like small business owners, entrepreneurs. Would you say though that you've always in some capacity, in some fashion, had a niche for just scaling things, for helping things grow, for not leaving things the way that they were necessarily when you got to them? Or was that something that kind of developed over time for you?
Probably developed over time. I've always had an innate curiosity, and I like to solve puzzles. So when you give me something to unravel, or a process, or something to do, I've always tried and take it apart and figure out how it works. Not mechanically. My grandfather had that skill, but everybody in my family is a mechanic. I suppose I'm a mechanic with numbers. You take apart the thing, try and figure out how it works, and make it a little bit better. It was only over time that I really realized that leads to growth, right? You can do things like acquisition, you can do process improvement, or have a process to get some new business development in. We built a new store template for the tire company many years ago that was very effective. So, there's a lot of ways operationally that you can kind of take apart the business, understand how to grow it, and processize, I guess, that process. That's what I got good at. And when I realized that led to growth, of course, growth is more profit, more ability to to satisfy your shareholders, to employ people, to move the economy, to do all the things that are really key to to driving forward. So it's when I realized it was a useful skill, I figured I'd use my powers for good.
Well, we definitely do like to be on the superhero side of the story for sure, not the villain origin. But I get that and I understand that. And I like to ask questions around the what kind of propelled people, or what was kind of like that aha or that light bulb, because it always is interesting just to see where they were before, what their interest was, what experiences maybe even they were able to gain as they were doing what they did, and then what did they translate to, what did they maybe learn, what did they come across, what problem did they maybe even stumble upon, or what was some feedback that they got, and how did they translate that, how did they now push that, and like you said, use it on the positive side, use it for good. So I think about a chief financial officer. I think about how that sounds like a very crucial role to an organization. As someone who I serve as a chief marketing officer for an organization, I understand that a chief, anytime you see a C position, it just sounds like it comes with some importance. Now, with being a CFO specifically, when you think about it from a small business perspective, when you think about it from just the role that it plays in a business or in a brand or anything like that, why should people look to adopt that? Now, obviously, I asked this question not for the CFOs out there because they know exactly why, but I asked this question for the people out there who may or may not have a CFO, who may have a CFO and not necessarily knows everything that goes into their roles and responsibilities, or people who may not have a CFO and may think that they don't necessarily need one. So when it comes to looking at the CFO, the roles, the responsibilities, the criteria, and the guidelines that align with the position, why is that essential to organizations?
Well, that's a great question, and we could do a whole podcast just on that. I mean, the CFO is really the person that brings the finance perspective, the number perspective to the game, to the table. They sit at the table with the entrepreneur. It's not somebody that's away in another place, or somebody that you talk to once a year, like your CPA. When you're doing your tax return, it really is somebody that's involved in the business. You had mentioned before talking about gut and gut instinct, and kind of making decisions, and it's a perfect example of how your CFO is important. Gut is great. Gut is what got you successful in the first place. You know your business better than anybody else, but if you're just making decisions with your gut and not having any kind of analysis or some type of assurance behind it, you could be wrong, right? Sitting there with somebody else that says, okay, your gut's great. Now here's what the numbers say, and here's what that could impact, and here's what we think is going to happen if you go with your gut. That's the magic of finance. So what you get with a CFO is a partner, a coach, an accountant, sure, but more than that, somebody to just work finances with. And I think that every business needs one. When I had that moment when I realized that smaller businesses don't have CFOs, and really just they were asking their bookkeeper or their CPA these questions about should I do this? What about this decision with my gut? It really was a light bulb moment for me where I said, okay, I need to fix this problem. I need to bring the experience of finance to people that don't even know that it exists, much less know how to implement it. So um, having a fractional CFO is a way for a small business to actually get that service rather than the hundreds of thousands of dollars that the average CFO makes in their large corporate careers, and the fourth vacation home kind of scenario. We bring that down to a very reasonable level so that it can be accessed through a subscription basis.
Okay, look, I get it. I definitely do understand it, but I definitely do like that answer and that approach that you took to that, because it just breaks things down just a tad bit more, and it makes us just maybe think about things from a different perspective, and even to align with our goals and to align with our mission and our values. Because a lot of times, as you said, the gut can be great. It can be, but it should not serve as the end all be all, especially in business and especially for something that you're not as well versed in. For me, I don't mind being on the CMO side because I understand everything that goes into, well, I'm not going to say everything because I don't, but I understand a lot of what goes into marketing, digital, social media, promotion, everything like that. But if you were to talk to me about a CTO, a CFO, a COO, I would be kind of staring at like a deer in the headlights in some parts, because I'm not necessarily well versed in that. I have no finance background whatsoever, other than I try to save my money and build credit as best as I can. I really have no chief technical officer experience, chief operating officer. That's just not something I'm well versed in. But oftentimes, as business owners, especially small business owners, we can shy away from things that we're not versed in, and we can naturally just go with what we think is right, or maybe ask a question, do some Google searches and or YouTube somewhere, and just find out that may be what we are most comfortable with, but it may not be what's most beneficial to our brand, to our business. So I love that you did that too, because it's sometimes bringing someone in who may not know you personally, may not know anything about what you have going on, but know the niche, know the role, know what needs to be done, and will align it just that way. And that's why I like those positions like that, because these are chief officers within your organization. These are your go-tos. These are people who, yes, they sit very high. They have the fancy pictures and titles and everything like that, but the work will always speak for itself, barring you hire somebody who is very successful now. So with thinking about your corporate background, thinking about what you were doing before, corporate finance background in a sense, what is for someone still stuck in corporate finance, not necessarily stuck because he is comfortable. This was some questions that we got from the audience, some feedback that we were getting. So for someone still in corporate finance, for someone enjoying what they do, but always looking to leverage and make the most money possible, but utilize all their resources, what would you suggest as some routes that they could take to ensure that they are capitalizing on all the opportunities and all the resources that are within the corporate finance industry?
Well, there's definitely a path through corporate finance. And if we want to talk about kind of growth that career path, it's pretty interesting. There's uh, by all accounts, obviously CFO is the top of that. A lot of CFOs do go on to be CEOs, not just of their own companies, but think of Apple. Tim Cook is he's a perfect example of somebody that went from finance to actually running a company. But presumably in finance, the top level is a CFO. So through that career track, I could do another whole podcast on the idea of the career track to CFO and how to get there. There's a couple different routes and different advices that I would give to get to that level. And one is just to keep growing and keep learning and keep doing, right? If you're in the accounting side of that, get some FP&A or financial planning and analysis experience. Go to the finance, budgeting, and planning side of it. If you're in the finance, budgeting, and planning side of it, go to accounting, get a rounded education, work your way through the organization, and grow within that space to get to whatever position you top out at. I think CFOs are a different skill set than somebody called a controller, who should be the most hooked up person in any organization. But controller experience, I think, is really key for getting to the CFO chair. And a good controller can make or break a company. A good CFO can be a figurehead in the end, but a controller is really where the action happens. So in my world, I'm a little bit controller, I'm a little bit CFO, I'm a little bit CEO, entrepreneur now as well. So that's, I think, the question you were asking is really about that and how to grow. I would say you do start getting some interesting earnings through that process. As you get into the management side of things, there are bonus plans for performance, and there's all types of programs that you would be able to not just have a good salary, but a lot of other incentive comp for doing things that really propel the company forward. If I were advising companies on performance plans, I would obviously say, what do you want to happen, and then reward that. And that's what that's what a lot of big companies do, is reward that talent for moving forward. So as you get above the controller level into the C level, most of the compensation you'll make is not just your base salary. It's the bonuses for doing exceptional performance, which usually means making more money for the company. So as the company makes more money, you make more money. Secondarily to your question, how do you kind of come out of that? I took my last company public. We had a team of people that rang the NASDAQ bell in 2018 as my last time ringing the bell. And, I left that company in 2020, early in the pandemic, just to start PPS Solutions, which I didn't realize I was going to do at the time. Just, kind of the light bulb moment. That's not for the faint of heart, right? To cash in that corporate career and not have that paycheck and the bonus levels that I came to expect in in companies that get to ring the bell. It's difficult. It's not for the faint of heart. Starting your company, no matter whether you have a wealth of experience or not, is not easy, as you know. So, I would say that there's a lot of support out there for that. If anybody wants to come out of corporate finance and go into this fractional CFO space, there's a lot of coaching. There's a lot of communities to join. I'm a member of a few of them. So, I'd recommend, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about that in case they need that advice. But I would recommend joining some of those communities, understanding what that is, and being cautious. But it's a pretty awesome space to be in because we really help business.
I could definitely agree to that, and I love that point of as you continue to do what you have to do, aka your job, and make the company more money, they then reward you for that. But as you said, it's very interesting when you left and when you decided to kind of go off on your own. Arguably one of the hardest times to transition for a lot of people, but it was a time where a lot of transition was happening. I feel like during the pandemic, they were even releasing a lot of stats, which I can't recall right now, but they were just saying how the influx of business owners and entrepreneurs, it soared, it skyrocketed, whether it be from layoffs, whether it be from people on different curfews, essential work. I was even an essential worker during the pandemic, but I also think that I started Down to Business podcast in 2019 going into 2020. So it was very interesting to see this, as I said, the influx, to see everything. But as you said, it's definitely not for the faint of heart. We talk about, they were even calling them, some people call them pandemic profits, pandemic businesses, everything of the sort. But we see a lot of those that started, did well, are still doing well, started, maybe did well, faded off, started, faded off, didn't start, so there were so many different lanes and so many different avenues that you went into. But as you said, just even thinking about your experience that you had. So I want to even go a little bit further into that in your experiences, just to also show people that things happen, that life is, that you can be where you are now. You can offer yourself as a resource and be able to, like you said, have some fun with it, join different groups, and remain that Swiss Army knife. Because that's really what I got from your answer. I recognize that, look, while you may have experience in one place, in one facet, jump over to another. Don't get too complacent or don't get too stagnant in here and just want to build everything up on here, when you can go here, get that experience, do what you have to do, go here, get that experience, do what you have to do. And all of that under your umbrella will just make you more of an asset to anybody who may bring you in. So for you specifically, when you think about 2020, when you think about, as you said, you cashed in that ticket to now make that bold move to go off on your own. John, what were just some things that were maybe even going through your mind? What were some things that you experienced as you really became a CEO, as you really came into business, as you really went from your 9 to 5 to now everything is on you? If I don't put in the work, I don't reap the benefits.
Yeah, that's a great question. I I had it thrust upon me actually. So I knew, we had a date for my leaving the company that went public, and it was the right time to do that. So I had some advance warning, and it was to my liking as well. So worked out well. My plan was to go on and do something else. We had taken this company from about 200 million to about 400 million, combined it with another company to form almost $1 billion company, put it out into the public market. It's since been kind of redivided and sold off again. But we did our job the way that the board wanted us to. So when I left that company, my plan was to go and do that again. Take another company, double it, triple it, do something interesting, make $1 billion companies, ring the bell, and repeat. Um, March 7th or so, I was home and decided to stay home for a couple weeks, not do any more interviews or think about some of the opportunities that were out there. Of course, those opportunities, everybody was in flux. So those opportunities that I was thinking about dried up, and rather than having the bidding war for my services from these companies that were all going to overpay me to do something, what I just paused and said, okay, for the first time in my life, since my parents bought their first business and I started in accounting at the age of 8, I'm going to take some time off and figure it out. And a couple weeks later, I had no reason to say no when a friend who owns a CPA firm asked me to consult basically for a smaller company, a company that I probably wouldn't have thought of, because they're just, they weren't making enough money to support a full-time CFO. So for me, that was the moment that I said, okay, I'll do it because I have nothing else to do. But when I started talking to these companies and this partnership dispute and this issue that I was brought into wasn't even a financial problem that I was brought into. It was a cultural problem where the owners were all suing each other, and there were death threats and just huge issues that weren't financial at all. But I went in with my financial hat on. We engineered a solution to it, and ultimately it kind of changed my thought process and my momentum. From that point, I said I don't want to go on and do another ringing the bell unless I really build it, from something that's small. Um, I want to help small business, and these people really need that help. If the group that I went into at first had made different decisions, better decisions with their financial data all through their relationship, the company would have been in an entirely different place, and the owners probably wouldn't have been suing each other. So that to me was was the moment I said, I'm going to use my powers for good, and hopefully fix some of the problems. But it was a scary time. You mentioned the pandemic and my thought process. My thought process was, I'm going to just hold off and not go to the office. And all of a sudden that morphed into having my own business and really having a mission to help small business.
It's amazing really just to hear about a lot of what happened in the pandemic, like business and entrepreneurial wise, like what people were doing, where they were before, even some people getting into things that they never thought would have happened. But even those light bulbs or even those moments happening for people that they were realizing, hey, maybe I can pivot. I can use this to my advantage. I can do something to make this happen. Or like myself, you probably just got a little bored. You were a little frustrated. You were tired of applying for jobs and you started a podcast. You did that. So, but no, I like to hear that. And I love and I appreciate the transparency just the same, because I want people to realize that, while we start these things, we scale these things, we do the due diligence to make sure that they end up where we want them to be. It's a process. There are not so rainy days. There are days where you lose motivation, where you may not know what's next, what's happening. I even had somebody just say the pandemic helped me step into my entrepreneur life. I think about even my generation, how that business ownership, entrepreneurial, it wasn't something that was like placed in the forefront of us. It was always our parents telling us, make sure you go get a job. You're not going to stay here all the time. You have to do something. You have to make it happen. So to now just see everybody in their respective fields and where they are, it's really just amazing. But I also want people to realize that it's not all glitz and glamour. It's not all just shooting stars and just rainbows and just happy things. There are places where, sometimes you have to pause. You have to stop. You have to take a break from some things and really just get back to square one and get back to the drawing board. And for a lot of people, that can be a place that they don't want to return to because they don't want to feel like they're starting from scratch or losing track or backtracking. But sometimes you have to backtrack in order to continue to fast forward and move forward. So I want to take it a step further too. and ask you about those people who you spoke about before, our gut people, our people who just think that, I want to really keep the decision making process in house. I don't really, but CPAs, bookkeepers, CFOs, this is you're throwing terminology at me. I don't know what all these acronyms mean, but I don't really know where they fit in my organization as well. I'm a clothing brand. I'm an artist. I work in healthcare. I work in real estate. Why do I need these people? So when it comes to bringing a CFO into your organization, into your business, what is some insight that you can even give into making sure that you pick someone who is the best fit for you, and not somebody who you think, I'm not even the best fit for you, but rather for your organization, and not maybe picking somebody who you just see as like a friend, or you see as maybe just like the top of the top. They've come off a great recommendation and everything. How do you ensure that the person you're bringing in as that chief financial officer is going to truly do the due diligence to make sure that your organization excels?
Sure. So, there's a definite need to get the right person, and as you mentioned, hiring a friend is probably not, you know, not the best first option to go with. Hiring somebody you trust is. So, in order for somebody to be successful in the role, because keep in mind, your CFO is a coach. You have to listen to them, right? They're going to review your performance, and they're going to say you did these things, you could do these things better. You do these things well. You can do these things better. It's almost like the coach after a football game. You're drawing little X's and O's and saying, here's the play, right? Could have done this better. You missed this. You did this okay. Um, you have to be able to take that feedback from that person. So you have to know them, you have to like them, and you have to trust them. And that doesn't just magically pop out of the ground, right? It's some that's built over time. Uh, your CFO is also kind of like your doctor. You don't want to have a conversation where you don't tell them about what's going on in your business and be very real with them. You're not going to get good advice from a CFO that you don't include in your process and really, kind of understand at a detailed level what's going on in your business. So trust is a huge factor, and that's not just built. You're going to give it, obviously, because you have to, but that's built over time. So I think the first thing you need to do when you're looking for a fractional CFO or a permanent CFO is it has to be somebody that fits with you culturally, personally. You have to like the person that you're going to deal with. If you don't like dealing with them, you're not going to, and therefore you're going to have a bad relationship, and it's just going to end poorly. So number one, that. Number two is industry experience. Um, if you have a clothing brand, I don't recommend bringing somebody in from film or television or, podcasting, aerospace. Probably not going to, be very successful. So somebody that has experience in your industry and that understands the terms of your industry. Use a few acronyms of things that they should know if they've been in your industry. Quiz them on how they interact with people in your industry, and you'll know whether they are BSing you or not. And the third is really kind of a skill set. So references are great for that. You can figure out if somebody has done something interesting for your competition or your people other in your industry. That's great, but test them. If not, use a tester. Use an accounting thing from LinkedIn or Caliper or somebody, and just say, "Here, take this test for me, thanks." And you'll be able to tell whether they're BSing you on their technical skills as well. Those three things I think will get you the right hire for you. The most important thing, though, is that you have somebody that you work well with.
That cohesion is important, because it'll then start to affect the actual trajectory of what we're working towards or what we're working on. If we're constantly just playing that cat and mouse, or that we can't fit the pieces to the puzzle together, we're going to be doing a lot of back and forth, and we're not really going to be putting that towards the organization or towards the business. So I love your point too about trust. It has to be that. I got the impression from the company that brought me in as the CMO that pretty much, if all things were to go left, and a few things went left, we know that based on your skill set, your repertoire, your rapport, you would be able to still make things happen and still get the job done. If we turn our backs, we still trust that everything is going to be okay, and not somebody that you have to micromanage, because I can't stand being micromanaged. So I'm definitely not even going to make you feel that way. But it has to be someone who, like you said, you truly know them in and out also. But also too, I love the testing idea, because while it sounds so, I guess, like so childish or so school like. It's important though. I need to know that you know what you're doing and you're not just here to collect a paycheck and maybe just, like you said, BS some things, throw some stuff into some AI models and really just do that. Do you know the industry? Do you know what this acronym stands for? And I think that's perfect. And I even had someone else just comment too. And so I'm actually going to send him probably to you on the side. I need some CPA nuggets for small business and starting entrepreneurs that can help take their business from 4 to 5 figures. So I'm going to tell. I love the fact that you offered yourself as a resource, because I'm definitely going to tap him in with you afterwards. But I love the fact that people are thinking from this perspective and thinking about how to scale, thinking about how to grow, thinking about doing whatever, thinking about using their experience, what they have, even their industry and those around them, those resources, to be able to move forward. Even said 5 or 6 figures. So would you say that there is a specific place to start from a CPA perspective if you're looking, if you're a small business owner or entrepreneur kind of just getting into the realm of things? Is there a framework? Is there maybe some steps that I need to take or some steps that I need to follow to ensure that I'm growing, that I'm scaling, that at the end of each year, when I'm doing my reflection, when I'm doing my quarterly reviews, we are always increasing, we're in the green and we're not barely staying afloat?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing that we need to deal with there is the idea of budgeting and planning. So, when we first start our business, especially if you go to the SBA or anywhere else to get money for it, they're going to ask you to do a business plan, right? And they're going to, what's your plan? What are you going to do, right? Marketing, sales, operations. What is your plan? There's a thing behind that, called a forecast or a budget that somebody's going to help you do, or you just type in the form and give it to your SBA lender. And, those things are kind of tossed away in a lot of cases right after that, because, we're going to go run the business. We don't have time to think about what we said we were going to do. Right. The key to every business, and this happens every year, is you should create a budget. You put down what you expect to do and what results that is, what results that will net. So what are you going to hit for sales? What's your margin going to be? What are your expenses going to be? And therefore, calculation wise, what's the number at the bottom that you're going to make for income? Every single month going forward, you look at that, you close out your books, make sure that you're doing proper accrual accounting. Your CPA can help you with that. And then you look at that and you review it and you say, did I do what I expected to do? Was there any anomaly? An anomaly that's a plus is great. You need to capitalize on those things. And an anomaly that's a minus needs to be understood and corrected immediately. So, it's just that cadence of doing a budget, comparing your actuals to the budget, and then revising yourself, your actions, your forecast going forward, that's going to make you successful in life. And that's true getting from 4 to 5 to 6 to 10 figures. It's a little bit different skill set to run a $50 million company than it is to run a 100 million or $1 billion company. It is hard for entrepreneurs, for example, to go from $5 to $25 million because it's a different skill set, different mindset. But it's the same exact thing from a finance perspective. You budget, you do, you review, and then you rebudget.
It's all about that planning and to ensure it. And I do agree, because I think that, the more you strategize, the more you come up with something before just diving right into it, the more you can account for maybe the things that may not go your way, or maybe sometimes when you hit that goal, but maybe it took a little longer to get there, or maybe you didn't hit it, but hey, we didn't hit this, but we did this instead, or we learned this, or we didn't hit it, but we didn't hit it because of this. So if we alter or adjust this, we can get there. So I do think that, and two, planning and budgeting is important too, because it gives you concrete things to look at, whether it be numbers or whether it be action items. Whereas, if we go into things just willy-nilly, it could say, well, if somebody asks you, hey, well, what were you thinking, or what made you make that decision? You may just pull something off your head, or you may not necessarily know. But if you say, hey, well, what were you thinking? Why did you plan it this particular way? Oh, well, actually, let me pull up my budgeting and planning document for you, and I'll show you exactly why I thought of this way, and maybe what could be changed there. So I love that. While that answer, like, to me, like, I was asking that question, I'm actually kind of curious in my head, like, well, like, what is it? 4 to 5 is a jump, 5 to 6 is a jump, 6 to 7, anything's a jump for sure. And like you said, it takes a specific type of skill set to do that. But when you just say budgeting and planning, I'm like, wow, is it that simple? But simple to us is also to a lot of people just what they're not doing, or what they haven't implemented or made really a plan of action within their business or within their organization too. Okay, so now for my people out there that are now 30 minutes into the interview. You've said some great things, you've piqued some interest, you've struck their fancy just a tad bit, but they know nothing about PPS Solutions. They don't even know where you're located or where you're based out of. So for those people coming across this episode, for those people listening, but for those people who are interested in some capacity, interested whether it be to continue to follow along the journey, interested because they want to maybe tap in with you on the side and maybe ask some questions or figure out where they are in business and what they can do, or interested because, hey John, you can make me some money and I want to have some conversations with you. Can you just give us insight, or can we just take a deeper dive into what it's like undergoing PPS Solutions, what it's like really working with you all, what it's like really kind of bringing you guys on? What can an experience be like? And the reason why I like to ask this question is just because I make a big point here of not necessarily shaming big businesses, but I don't like the idea of not necessarily being able to put a face to a name, or not necessarily being able to get directly in contact with somebody. Chatbots are cool, emails are cool, but after a while, I need to just speak to someone, or I need to be able to say, "Hey, that's John. That's PPS Solutions. That's the representative. I spoke with him. I sat down with him. We actually had a video call. I can actually, talk to him right now." And I feel like oftentimes that's lost. And that can also just affect how people feel, because people do a lot of what they do business-wise and entrepreneurial-wise off of trust, as we talked about, off of emotion, off of just that experience that they're getting. So when looking at PPS Solutions, when somebody wants to kind of add you guys to their repertoire in some form or fashion, what can they expect?
Sure. Well, I think the entire process of hiring a CFO, hiring whether it's fractional or not, and usually we're in the fractional space, so I'll go through that process and that thought process. The You really have to trust them, right? Know, like, and trust. So that doesn't it's not something you're ever going to order off the internet. There is no website that I could design. There is no thing I could do to say, oh, you can sign up without without hearing about the service and really understanding what it is. And from the opposite side, I don't know that we could support a business that we didn't understand at a pretty deep level. PPS at its core is a service that's a subscription service, but it's a value service that we're giving to somebody that I'm not explaining correctly. We're a heart of service, so we want to be of service to all business. I can probably not help a lot of businesses at the level that I'm used to because of their size or because of their nature. And in a few cases, we say no due to values misalignment or some other issue. But in general, we like to help business. So my process is that we go through a pretty rigorous set of calls. I'll schedule a 30-minute call with anybody. We'll answer questions. We'll learn who people are, what they do, and how to, whether there's a qualification for future use. And during that process, I may recommend other things. I can give information if I have it. I can help with anything that I know about, which I've been in finance for 30 something years, so I can give some advice, and that's always free. And there's a lot of other services and people that we'd recommend as well. So if somebody else that we know can help you, we'll make that introduction and move on. If we go through the qualification call and understand that your business is a good fit, at least at an initial level, we do a deep dive. So we literally spend about an hour with all the principles of the business to really understand the operations, what you do, why you do it, how you got into business, all the things that drive your hopes, fears, uncertainties, opportunities, risks, rewards, everything to do with your business. And it's really deep dive. It's pretty invasive and for a good reason, because I have to build that know, like, and trust with your business as well. You have to build it with me and my team. I have to build it with you and your team. So if we get through that, and we obviously make a proposal and we go through the proposal, we talk about what the service is. Most entrepreneurs think that service is still somehow related to their CPA and we're going to do your taxes, which we're not. It is, I will totally make your tax life easier because we will present the financials in a way that helps your tax accountant get the tax returns done. And there is a chance operationally that I will be buying a CPA firm that does taxes, so this may change in the future. But right now, I didn't build PPS for taxes. So your CPA firm is still separate and something that's interesting that we interface with, but not what we do. So education is set from the very beginning, and what I do is basically help your business to survive and to thrive. We call it a supporting your vision of success, because while more money and more profit is probably part of your success uh, you know algorithm, it may not be. We want to figure out what your vision of success is, and then help you build a budget and a plan to achieve that vision of success. We work together to put that budget and planning together, the KPIs or reporting metrics, whatever we're going to monitor for the business. We want to make sure those don't get out of control. We don't look at 20 things. We need to look at 4 or 5 things just to monitor the business, help make sure that it goes forward. And then we basically help you run your business forever on a subscription basis. And so for the same flat fee every month, you can call your CFO, you can email your CFO, you can get a reporting package every month. And that's what it looks like to work with us. Some firms are very specific in their in how much you can contact the CFO and how many meetings you can have. I like to maintain a little bit more informality about that, right? If you need to ask a question at 2:00 on a Thursday, and that's the time that you need that answer, unless you're calling us, every single day at 2:00 and monopolizing your CFOs all of your time so that they can't support other businesses, it should feel like having your own person. So we want to make sure that we're providing that level of service. I think that's kind of the overview of how it looks to come on board with PPS and what it looks like to be serviced by PPS. Each CFO that we have will service some number of businesses, at a larger subscription. Obviously, that's a lot less businesses because we expect more touch points. At the CFO Lite package or Express CFO, I think whatever we're calling it this week, that person's serving more businesses, but still with that same level of wanting to help the business achieve its goals and being the CFO of that business at any time.
So a personalized, unique experience is really truly what I'm hearing here too, and I love that informality point too, because I could imagine that some people may feel as though that could be a bit confining, and it could be just a thing of if I'm only being told that I could contact here or then and then, well, what if I'm not necessarily running into any issues or anything like that at those said times or within that window or that gap? I feel like I may lose opportunities in that. But with your approach, I can obviously, like you said, unless I'm just doing this repeatedly, I can pick and choose when I kind of need to go or when I want to exhaust my resource or use that CFO. But nonetheless, I like how you said own person, and it makes it feel like that while that person may be involved in other places, while that person may even have other things under their belt, a life outside of just my business and what I need you to do, I still get that unique experience. And I still get that experience that if I need you, if I want you to do some due diligence, or if I just need something, I definitely can have that trust, as we talked about, that it'll be taken care of and that it'll happen. Now, I do want to rewind a little bit, just because this may even help me a little bit, because I think I need to I know I need to do better. And the fact that I use think first just lets me know that I'm not moving where I need to be. So we spoke about budgeting and planning, but specifically budgeting, because I do feel like a budget is a sort of a plan in a sense. Now, with budgeting specifically, I have had people send me Excel templates. I have had people tell me to write things down, my expenses versus what I'm bringing in and everything like that. None of it has worked, because I think more so because I haven't been consistent with it, and because things change a lot and I don't make the updates. And sometimes I can be a bit fiscally irresponsible. I will definitely admit that. Now, when it comes to budgeting though, are there any tips, tricks, any methods that you may even recommend for smaller businesses out there, for people looking to, as we said, just scale, go from that 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, go get out of their own way in a sense? Is there anything that you can recommend to assist people with getting started with that or maintaining consistency around it?
Sure. And how you mentioned being a good CMO. I mean, nobody pops out of the womb, being a C anything, right? It's you built that because the first time you started the M activity, you had no clue what you were doing. Just like the first day out of accounting school, I had no clue about finance. We think we do, but we don't. And then what do, right? You do it, You either succeed or you fail. You figure out why you succeeded or why you failed, and you do it better next time. So, when you get to the C level, you've done it a million times. You've experimented, and you really get to know. So, the only way to get better at budgeting is to do a budget, regardless of how odious that of a task that is to you. And then to see how you did, and then to rinse and repeat every single month, every single day, every single whatever. So, the reason that I'm good at budgeting is because I've made a million of them, and they've all been wrong except for one. Only one time in the history of the world have I gotten the exact number at the bottom of a budget right, and it was pretty impressive. But in the end, the activity of making it is helping you crystallize your thoughts about how to make it. So that's a valid positive about budgeting. And the more you do it, the more you're going to get good at it. The point, I think, is that you don't have to do it yourself, right? Even your CPA or your bookkeeper can help you keep a budget. If you're not a person that's good at keeping spreadsheets and that wants to do everything on a monthly basis, you shouldn't do it yourself, right? You should be able to create it with somebody and help them to keep it going. But I would, you're going to have an accounting system. You're going to have QuickBooks, Xero, FreshBooks, whatever you do, Excel if you're into torture. And I mean, I like Excel, but as an entrepreneur, probably it's not the best thing. QuickBooks and Xero and FreshBooks are probably your best bets. They're going to spit out your financials, your income statement, your balance sheet, maybe even a statement of cash flow. That are your three important financials. And so I would budget in that format so that when you look at your budget, you'll be able to compare it to actuals. So thinking about your revenue, you start a budget by thinking about how much you're going to sell, writing that number down. What your cost of goods, if you're actually selling a thing, what your cost of goods is, and then writing that number down. The way you'll know these numbers is to look at the past performance. If you're starting a business from scratch, you have to just know that because you know it. But if you've been running it for a while, you literally look at what you did last month and last year and last 10 years and look at a track record, and you could plot those numbers pretty easily. Look at your expenses. What expenses do you have? Are they variable or fixed? Do your variable expenses increase with sales? So, as you increase sales, you need to increase your variable expenses. Your fixed expenses stay flat. Your office rent doesn't change if you make an extra $1 million worth of sales, for example. So it's really just about taking those formats, rolling them forward with what you expect, and getting, once you actually have your actuals, once your accounting is done for the month, comparing those actuals. Again, most people that aren't in finance don't like that activity, and so they don't do it. What happens? You don't do it all year long, and then you're spending your Christmas time and the week between Christmas and New Year's getting all your books updated because your accountant's going to be mad at you if you don't. You just lost the ability to use that information all year long to help you make better decisions. So, I really would encourage, if you're good at it yourself, great, hold yourself to account. But if you're not, hire somebody to do it. A fractional CFO is a good option. But if you can't afford one, get one of your nephews and nieces or kids who's good at Excel to do it for you, or somebody has to do it for you. Your CPA, your bookkeeper. There are services out there that do it cheaper than a fractional CFO. But as soon as you can afford a fractional CFO, in my opinion, it's a worthwhile investment. We actually create the value, not just in doing these tasks, but in executing the business so that it is more valuable. Sometimes we save money just by looking at expenses and saying, you shouldn't spend that, save our money that way. And in other cases, we're actually helping you make decisions that are exponentially paying for ourselves because your business is more successful, bigger, whatever the vision of success that you have for it is.
Whew, that's a whoo, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I can get long-winded.
I love that though. Nah, it was long-winded, but it wasn't even long-winded to me. If you think that was long-winded, I will blow it out of the water if you really want to do that. But no, that was needed. Honestly, I needed that. Like personally, I needed to hear that because it was just something that for me, like it became painstaking. But no matter how painstaking it became, I refused to exhaust any other resource. I just kept trying to do the same thing over and over and over again, and until I just gave up. And like you said, at the end of the year, I'm just sitting there like this every single time, and I'm just stressed out, and I'm just trying to figure out, why do I continue to put myself through this? And I think too, you spoke to your point about, I think part of the reason too why I was running into so many just problems and frustrations is because Excel is not the most conducive thing in the world, to sometimes to what I was trying to do and what I was trying to help. Now, I like Excel. I've used it a lot. It's gotten me through a lot of school, a lot of good grades, and everything of the sort. But for what I needed it for what I was trying to do, for what even I was trying to look at in the picture, I was just trying to paint for myself. It wasn't really happening that way. So what I'm also getting from that answer is that teamwork makes the dream work. So I'm definitely about to start outsourcing some people, whether it be family first, and then we kind of go out that route, or whether it just be, someone who I may even know within that field or within that industry to kind of help me and to do that. So no, thank you for that, because that's almost my call to action, to make sure that, while it's attainable, it's not just something that's going to happen on that first time, or something that's just going to happen like that overnight. You have to put in the work. And then, once I get it that first time, get over that hump, and really get comfortable with it, then from there, it kind of becomes like a walk in the park, or it kind of becomes a breeze, obviously depending on the type of year you had, what we're doing, what we're reflecting. But it's all about just being diligent through it all. So now, before we wrap things up, before we close things out, we tell people where they can find you, tap in with you, the websites, everything of the sort. Do you feel like there is anything that we have not touched on today, whether it be from a future outlook of PPS Solutions, people tapping in, and kind of just some things that you guys may be debuting or getting into as we progress through the year and think about 2025? Is there even any last words that you want to leave for other business owners, entrepreneurs, creatives, CFOs, anything of the sort like that?
Oh, that's probably a lot. Yeah. So one of the things, yeah, entrepreneurial journey is kind of interesting, both mine and the people that we help along the way. I'm pretty excited to be involved in that, but growing my own business is obviously a big passion. And I'll say, just to make you feel better, I was in a room of fractional CFOs a few weeks ago with at a conference in Dallas, and the leader of the conference kind of held everybody up and says, "How many of you keep your books in order and are doing your own stuff?" And literally, like 6 of us raised our hands, because I'm fairly good at it, even though it's the first thing to slide, right? Client facing stuff comes first, and your own books come second. So even in our industry, it's not something that it's easy. I assume that people that clean houses for a living have dirty houses, right? It's just probably true. The second I would say is on the entrepreneurial journey, there's a lot of opportunity out there for the fractional CFOs. I preach about it constantly. So, we sign up businesses and add CFOs in proportion to serve those businesses. What I'm seeing in the market, though, is that there's a lot of trend towards this ETA movement, or entrepreneurship through acquisition. And so this year has been going crazy with people who want to buy businesses, and there's a lot of money out there in the world. The SBA is giving some decent terms, and a lot of banks are giving SBA money if you can get it. So it is a great time to go out and buy a business if that's something that that you have the stomach for. Certainly, does have risk. Obviously, you're borrowing a lot of money to do that, so you want to make sure that you do your diligence on the company. And make sure that you really know what you think it's going to do after you buy it. But that's a process that we've really been helping with this year. So I've been doing a lot of diligence work, what they'll call a quality of earnings reports, or checking the books of the company that we're buying. If you're buying the actual company rather than just the assets, I recommend a more thorough diligence report. And CPA firms traditionally do that, and they're rather expensive. So we're trying to put some products out there in the market that are reasonable and less expensive than the big CPA firms, so that we just make sure you're actually buying something of value that's not going to crumble within 90 days of buying it. So that's one of the interesting things we see in the market, is that ETA movement, and there's a ton of actual podcasts and education out there for that. I'm seeing a huge shift to that. So my own business, we're trying to keep with the market as well, and offer products that help people, with whatever business needs they have. I think that was really the wrap up. I know we've touched on a lot today. I could talk for another hour or 2 or 3 on all the topics that we've talked about, but I hope we've given people a really good overview of what a CFO is, what they do, and how how they benefit business.
John, honestly, I think we've done that and then some, but all this lets me know is that a follow-up is in the works for sure. We will definitely reconvene another conversation, and we will have some things we will tap in at a later date. How I know that you did amazing and how I know that you did what you have to do, not only from the love and feedback that I'm seeing at the top of my screen, but someone also just asked, are you hiring for a work from home position? So that's how I know you really did what needed to be done. So, but
Awesome.
with that too, I also, well, one, obviously I thank you for the eagerness and willingness, as I spoke about in the beginning, to want to come on the show and everything like that and tapping with me, even bearing with me as I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off because I just had things everywhere today. But on top of that too, I thank you for offering yourself as a resource. Time and time again, I really am adamant to my viewers, to my audience, about how, we are talking to real life experts. We are talking to people who have been there, have done that, have been doing it even long. I've talked to people who've been doing things longer than I've been alive, and I'll be 28 in like 2 weeks. So it's crazy really to just have these people in front of us. And sometimes you think that you come across certain LinkedIn profiles or certain websites and social media, and you think, oh, these people I would never talk to them ever. Like I would never even be able to probably be in the same room as that person. Like, where are they? And to be able to sit virtually with someone and now then you connect with people or you offer yourself as a resource. To me, it's amazing. And it's humbling for me because it's gratifying, because that's really the mission and the mantra of the podcast, to really just connect people. As you said, I could sit on here, clearly stare at myself and just talk. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, you name it. You just give me some topics, we can run and we can ramble about it. But the fact that I can really connect with others, bring people on, tell those stories, but also allow them to be a resource, man, it's beautiful. So thank you seriously to you, John, and anything that we can do, obviously from the down to business side to support, just let us know. But please believe we are tapped and we are following PPS Solutions along the way. So now, before I officially hit end, before I cut the gems off for right now, because I think you're giving people too many gems, but it's no such thing as that. But before we end all things, can you just give us everything as far as the best places to get in touch with you, whether it be a website, social media, any contact information? Just give us everything that you got.
Sure. So my website is probably the easiest place. It's PPS Finance. The PPS is for People, Process, Systems, because I believe that success in any business requires those things in that order. PPSfinance.com. My email is John, John, at PPSfinance.com. Our process is such that you can send me an email or book some time on my calendar through that website. One of our core values is being of service, right? We want clients that want to be of service, and we want to be of service to our clients. So, ask me any question. I'll give you my my unvarnished opinion, and hopefully it helps. Sometimes they do. From that perspective, the website is the best place. We're not a ton on social, but LinkedIn, obviously, ppssolutions.com, or PPS Solutions rather. PPSsolutions.com was taken, so that's not it. But PPS Finance is the website, PPS Solutions is the company, and the LinkedIn.
Perfect. So thank you for everything, John. I really do appreciate it. And thank you to everybody who joined us live, who tapped in with us, who dropped some feedback, who dropped some questions, who kept the conversation going and entertaining just the same. Because, you make my job just a little bit easier sometimes. Obviously, I get on here, I know what we're here to do, what we want to talk about, but I love hearing from the audience. Part of the reason why I don't prepare questions or do anything beforehand like that is because I don't want to confine our episodes. I don't want to confine our interviewees. I really want to hit all things that we go. So, John, seriously, to you, to the team over at PPS, thank you so much for everything that you guys are doing. I'm rooting for you. I'm encouraging my audience to continue to tap in, and we will make sure that all resources, all information is shared once this episode goes live. And to now everyone else out there, to the people tapping in with me, to the people hearing this episode, supporting the journey, look, you've been rocking, you've been rolling with us. I appreciate you all being so patient with me, because it's been such a busy summer, and y'all know how just things get. But as we kind of transition, as we continue to move throughout the year, I think y'all just stick with us. It's a lot coming, but please believe we are going to continue to get down to business by any means necessary. So thank y'all. I love y'all. This has been another episode of the Down to Business podcast here with Tamar Turner.